Boris too asked a question that I partially answered by sending that chapter, as I remember, from Reflections on Reality. I'll answer another part of it by pointing out that the mind, and I'll try to take this not past 9:15 my time. In the mind-only school, one type of emptiness, as we've already said, is that objects are not established by way of their phenomena, not established by way of their own character. As the reference of terms and of the conceptual consciousnesses that apprehend them. They're not established by way of their own character as those. Let's see, what I'm getting at is, what does establishment by way of its own character mean in the mind-only school and in the autonomy school and the consequence school? Now, it is correctly said that in the autonomy school and in the consequence school, establishment by way of its own character means the same thing. How is this known? Because in the consequence school, when you search for an object in the 5, or even you could say in the 7 ways, but you can't find it, even conventionally. But when in the autonomy school, when you search for the object in the 5 or 7 ways, you can find it conventionally. So no problem. That's why it's said, conventionally speaking, in the autonomy school, objects are established by way of their own character. In Chondrakirti's consequence school system, or any consequence school system, objects are not established by way of their own character conventionally.
So then it just makes
Then, before you ask your question, in the mind-only school, permanent phenomena are not established by way of their own character as the reference of conceptual consciousnesses or as the objects of our terms. So if in the mind-only school they understand that some objects are not established by way of their own character as the reference of conceptual consciousnesses, etc., then established by way of its own character has to mean something different in the mind-only school than it does in the autonomy school and in the consequence school. So what does it mean? And for that, you can look in absorption in no external world. There's an excellent, I'm patting myself on the head, outlined. There are two tables of contents in absorption in no external world, one short and one very long, that lists all of the issues. And there's, I guess, somewhat lengthy section on the meaning of establishment by way of its own character in the mind-only school. I didn't look it up. You know, my mind has been teased by Boris II's question. So, this has been, you know, in my idle hours. I don't know how idle they're idle. And this is the point to which I've gotten. And so, if Boris II says, oh yeah, I know all about that. And I got confused when I was reading in Absorption in No External World in that section, and I wanted your brief, pithy, quintessential instruction, pithy, quintessential, that's redundant, on that long section where you tackle this. But I didn't tell you that that's what I wanted from you. I just asked you a very short question in one short sentence to tell me the difference between these three schools. Since you said that object and subject are equally existent or something like that in the mind-only school. So I'm teasing you, Boris, too. If you knew all this before I just mentioned this today, and if you didn't know all this before I said it, then I have helped you out in gaining an answer to your question. But in any case, you will find the answer to your question in that section in absorption in no external world. And if you don't have that book, which will surprise me, then I've just made another sale. And I've gained another 90 cents, US, no doubt. And I'm living in Canada, so it's probably $1.25 or something like that. And it's a difficult section. It's really hard to figure out. And people have, Tibetan scholars, Gelugpa scholars, have different ways that with great difficulty they've worked out expressing what the difference is between the to set off what established by way of its own character means in the mind-only school, as opposed to the two branches of the Midway school. So that's enough on that topic, and we'll let you get at it. Yes, please.
I just want to. You said that the Tantrikas and Prasangikas, for existing by its own characteristic, means the same thing. But then you went on to say how it's accepted for conventionally by the Svatantrikas, but not the Prasangikas. So then does it really mean the same thing to those two schools?
Yes. Means that when you search for it, that one way to go about this is to say that, to answer that in the autonomy school, you conventionally you do find, when you search in these 5 or 7 ways, you do find the object. And in the consequent school, you don't find the object, even conventionally. Chandrakirti says this very clearly.
Yeah, but at the beginning you said that the term means the same thing for those
Yeah.
two schools.
Because it does. Yeah, and I just...
And it's just one school accepts it and the other doesn't. Okay.
Now, how does Baba Viveka show this? Show that he accepts that you do find the object. He says, if you are proving to me that the self is consciousness, meaning the mental consciousness, then you're proving to me what I already accept. That's where he reveals that he accepts that. He accepts that when you search for the person, you do find something. You find the mental consciousness. And so, extrapolated from that, when you search for the car, you find the collection of parts that'll be the car. Now that's extrapolated. And thus, there's 5 or so points that Tsong-kha-pa ferrets out from the writings of, and I'm talking slowly because I was going to say from Baba Viveka's writings, talking slowly because in those 5 or so, 5 or less, I don't know if he just quotes Baba Viveka, but Gyanagarbha, yes, who is a follower, though not direct student, of Baba Viveka. And I'm wondering, does he quote Kamala Shila? I forget. So I could say Swatantrikas. So I should say, just to make fun of you, just to give you a hard time, Swatantrikas and Prasangikas and where do you live? You live in a monastery called
Shravasti.
Oh, thank you. Shravasti. Shravasti. Drive it home. Give him a hard time. So that's an attempt to divert you and make you not ask your next question. Yeah, you were about to make a point. You see, it just caused you to forget what your next question was. So, leaving off from actually 2 times ago, because I got carried away last time. Why realization of the profound dependent arising is needed. It's pretty obvious what he's saying in what the stanza's saying. Developing the thought, and he just says thought. In Tibetan, the word is sama. And I often translate more colorfully the intention to get out of cyclic existence. And the altruistic generation of a mind toward the supreme enlightenment is another term, a longer term, which is not the term here. Generation of the mind, a mind toward supreme enlightenment. And it's this altruistic one. That's not enough to cut the root of cyclic existence. And in his rewording of it in prose, I was not satisfied with my translation several lines into it. The altruistic mind up to the point could mean up to the point of generating experience would mean that you didn't generate experience. I worked on that line a lot, and that's a stupid person's settling on the wrong translation. Up to means up to and through the point. It means, so it'd be better to say the altruistic mind through the level of generating experience. It means that you've generated experience. And the Tibetan is as vague as the English is. You never know with the Tibetan word barabar or parapar, depending on, I'm a Lhasa language person who paid attention to different, not that I went to Lhasa, and I have been to Lhasa 5 times, but in various parts of Lhasa, from the people I early studied, listened to, the barabar is pronounced par, also par, not par, but par. That could mean up until the point, up to the edge of the point, or through it. So the only way I figured in my ruminations last time were through the level of, no matter how much experience you had, generating experience of the altruistic mind, not up through Buddhahood, of course, or you still couldn't cut the root of cyclic existence. And you'd have to add, no matter how much levels of meditative stabilization help toward wisdom, no matter how much they help, you still have to have the wisdom realizing. Now, Tsong-kha-pa chooses to say realizing dependent arising. He could have said the wisdom realizing emptiness, or realizing dependent arising as the meaning of emptiness, or realizing emptiness as the meaning of dependent arising, and vice versa. He could have said it many different ways, but he said it in a very pithy way. And one can understand that only by reading the rest of the poem. And he chose this very pithy way. And it shows the depth of his realization, his understanding, his wish to speak in a pithy way. And of course, it's not me or anyone else, it's through reading his own text that you see how profound it is. And of course, one has to put it in context, generating the wisdom. If you think about what's the bottom line of this wisdom, even the wisdom, knowing dependent arising is the meaning of emptiness, and emptiness the meaning of dependent arising, this whole discussion that we're having is within the level of conceptual understanding. Conceptual understanding that is very profound. But it's not to the level of the path of seeing, this whole discussion. So even that level of wisdom arisen, if you think of wisdom arisen from meditation, in Tibetan, Gomjung Sherab. Let's see, giving myself a test. At what level does wisdom arisen from meditation arise? It certainly has arisen at the point of the beginning of the path of preparation, at which point one has the meditative stabilization, which is a union of calm abiding and special insight. Prior to that, does one have it? When one has, for instance, calm abiding that realizes emptiness, just calm abiding.
You could maybe have it on other objects, but I don't think on emptiness. Maybe.
Yeah. I wouldn't call that. Oh, I think you could. But not the meditative stabilization that's a union of calm abiding and special insight. Well, you and I will have to occupy different positions, at least for a while. That's a good one. Okay. Therefore, such persons must strive at the means for realizing dependent arising as the meaning of emptiness. Wow. It's really something. And combine this with meditative stabilization and bring that meditative stabilization to the point of direct realization in order to cut the root of cyclic existence. Wow. Cool. Then, how to realize the profound view of dependent arising. Now, this word delusive in the second line, this is the word, the same word in Tibetan, milua, which is I don't think there's that much of a problem. Is it that much of a problem? You know, a consciousness that's not deluded, that is not deceived. But here it's talking about seeing the cause and effect of all phenomena that will, as never delusive. Buddha said that all compounded phenomena are deceptive, are the word lua, are trick you, are deceptive. And here it's saying the cause and effect, it's talking about cause and effect. Now, I looked in Geshe Wangyal's translation of this morning. He said that the cause and effect of all phenomena, cyclic existence, and nirvana are infallible. Now, growing up in Rhode Island, Catholic Rhode Island, the Pope's infallible. The Pope doesn't make a mistake. So cause and effect don't make mistakes. I would have thought that it's consciousnesses and people who don't make mistakes. Cause and effects are infallible, have an infallible connection. Must be what he's referring to. And so, other words, I tended to use ineluctable and moved away from that. Ineluctable, dictionary said unavoidable. Incapable of being avoided or prevented. Incapable of being prevented, avoided. I've wondered what other translators have used. You must have other translations. Some Tibetan commentary, and unfortunately it was a week ago that I looked it up and I don't know whose Tibetan commentary it was now. Poor old mine. Said the Tibetan word, milua, and said, established by the next word. It didn't say therefore, it just said, shall we say, non-deceptive or ineluctable, established by valid cognition. It seemed to be, but it didn't put in the usual, I seem to be yelling, ineluctable. It didn't put in the syllable that would mean it was glossing ineluctable established by valid cognition. And it didn't put in the case ending, therefore, it didn't. But it put it next to it, like English, that was suggesting a positive. Ineluctable, established by valid cognition. Non-deceptive, established by valid cognition. And I went on the Gene Smith's website, the TBRC BD, which is now called BDRC, and just, put in the line from the text, and, no matter how many there were, it's not, people don't wax interesting, and, give a riffs on this. But Tsong-kha-pa, he uses the same term in the next stanza. He's not leaving this alone. You see, unavoidable, incapable of being avoided, unavoidable. That for that ineluctable. You see, I backed off of ineluctable because it's kind of fancy-pantsy, but I'm moving back to ineluctable. Okay, just raising it. So ineluctable, inescapable, unavoidable, inevitable. It's so if you see anything, anybody's rendering, their feeling about it. Now look at the because. Yes.
Does unerring?
Yes. That's a good one. Let's add that in.
I see that Tsong-kha-pa says, never deceive their laws.
Never deceived or?
Their laws. Never deceive their laws. Cause and effect.
Oh, I see. Never deceive their laws. Right?
Yes. That's what it says.
Never deceive. I can see exactly why he says that. Never deceive their laws. Foolproof, trustworthy, flawless, reliable, perfect is what the short version. It's worth. I mean, dependable, unfailing, foolproof, watertight, reliable. When I asked Shravasti Kimball about her reliable for
Valid.
For what word?
Valid cognizer, reliable cognizer.
Oh yeah, valid cognition. I thought you were going to say His Holiness gave that translation.
No.
And because I was really touched by it, despite deciding in the end that I couldn't use it for a certain reason, for the reasons I gave. So I thought, wow, that probably is something His Holiness came up with, because it was in many ways so conveying of a certain part of it. Well, so I only decided it was a certain part of it after a while. reliable sound, fail-safe sound. That meaning of sound. Fail-safe, surefire, trustworthy, steady, solid, sure, certain, perfect, flawless. How interesting. Foolproof, surefire, unreliable as an antonym. Fallible, of course, as an antonym. Their bigger thesaurus. Thesaurus is pretty good, isn't it? So Geshe Wangyals, you see why he came up with it. In my narrow, scary meaning, infallible, thinking of the Pope and turning away from the Pope and so forth. Blah, blah. Because, so here's because they're solely, on my umpteenth reading, solely established in reliance. And hence the presentations of all of them exist in the manner of the arising of effects and depending upon causes. And the note, okay, nothing. So I'm wondering if causes and effects goes to the wider meaning that we picked up of causes and effects that we had earlier, that could extend the meaning to permanent phenomena.
I asked Geshe Tapke about this.
Yes.
Because cyclic existence and nirvana is permanent, so cause and effect.
Yes.
It doesn't pertain to it. So he explained it as including permanent things in the sense that the attainment of nirvana comes about due to causes, even though nirvana itself is permanent.
So he wasn't going to include nirvana itself.
Well, he kind of did by saying that that's what nirvana means here.
So that, yes. So that's how I would have answered it. If you want to make it the attainment of nirvana, then it's path and so forth. But then if you want to make it nirvana itself, it would be by way of expanding the meaning of cause and effect, as was done earlier. So then I wouldn't rely on just the means of attaining nirvana.
But it could be a way of just saying it, because it sounds so much better to say samsara and nirvana than samsara and the attainment of nirvana.
Yes.
So maybe he just said it like this, anticipating that we would understand it in some rational way. Yeah.
And the phenomena included within cyclic existence and nirvana, who's going to pipe up with how many, and back to our list of phenomena?
180, 50, 55 pure, and 53.
Let's get a fact checker on her.
The pure have more. We've been through this.
Really?
Yeah, we went through this.
Okay, let's have a fact checker report next time. Now, it certainly looks as if the phenomena included within cyclic existence and nirvana include a lot of permanent phenomena. And that seems to be the referent here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And none of us, included myself, remember, it seems, even the brave person, and I appreciate her braveness, her bravery, her bravity, her courage in coming up with her numbers, and subjecting herself to the group's perspicacity. Okay. Because, and from that point, that means the point at which you see that the phenomena included within these two numbers are never, are ineluctably, right? Are ineluctably what? Because they are, yeah, ineluctably. That's not enough. Ineluctably doesn't.
They're so-
Yeah,
That's what you wrote. Because they are solely established as the
yeah, but ineluctable. Okay, ineluctable because they are solely established in reliance. All right. So the because clause is very important. And from that point, from the point of seeing them that way, all the targets, and targets is mikbe in Tibetan, mikbe deso. What that apprehension of true existence, of inherent existence, is really getting at. So, targets is a good word for it. Right? Directly translates the Tibetan word, I say. Although it may look as if it's a easy translation, it's not. Targets of targets of apprehension of objects. Mikbe deso, that's right. Have been destroyed. That is to say, the conceived objects, that's why he has to explain it, have become. Now the word there for become is gone in Tibetan song. And I think gone is better. Have gone utterly non-existent. Whoops. Have gone utterly non-existent. In the perspective, gone is far superior. Have gone utterly non-existent in the perspective of a rational consciousness. Rational is reasoning consciousness, analyzing the ultimate. When you use these reasonings in the face of that consciousness, the word perspective, in the outlook of that consciousness,
Using a word like gone or become sounds like the object itself changed.
now,
Which it did.
yeah,
It's consciousness that changed.
that target, you see, it was appearing to you there as most existent. as His Holiness said, and I've repeated many times in this teaching that he gave, I could come up with a date, but in the 1970s, 70s, yes, to a packed-in group of scholars in his, was his audience room. This target that you're so sure exists, it's very solidly there. It's when you search for it and you feel if it doesn't exist, nothing exists. And and then through this wholehearted search, then why the hell else would we get so pissed off and so desirous, I must have it, and so bothered when we don't get it? Even small things, tiny things, never mind something big. Those persons have found the final thought of the conqueror, victor, conqueror, whatever, whereby they have entered the middle path, pleasing the conqueror. Now, it's very interesting. It's a personal relationship, and you've made the conqueror happy, and this is the pat on the head. The guy's happy. Whoever your conqueror is, whether it's a female conqueror, male conqueror, whatever, person is like, hey, you found it. It's like Lingam Rinpoche, His Holiness said Lingam Rinpoche never smiled. In that movie, Shabra Rinpoche, Shabra Rinpoche was smiling when he acted the part. No. Lingam Rinpoche is like, he didn't, His Holiness felt, I'm higher than you, and you're giving me a hard time all the time. He said that, told me. You're giving me a hard time all the time. And finally, at some point, Rinpoche smiled. You see, there are these personal touches in here, and you can see, and they're really important. And you got to know. Well, I don't know. You got to notice them. And it's there are descriptions of personal things going on, and it's like, otherwise it's like, what the hell? Buddha's Buddha. Why does Buddha need to be pleased? And that's not the point. Buddha is there's some conveyance of you got it right. And Buddha doesn't need to be pleased, but it's not a question of need. Oh yeah. there's a delivery of a message. Not to say that Shabram J isn't a nice guy or something. Shabram J when I was living at Kashmir Cottage, he was living in another section of Kashmir Cottage with Kamal Rinpoche. And there was a buffalo that had some kind of blood-sucking, bug. And he was removing the blood-sucking animal, bug, whatever. Took a lot of time. I was coming back from somewhere, and I saw him over there, and I asked somebody, what's he doing? And he was removing this blood-sucking from the, not one or two, a whole lot of them. I didn't go over to look even, he was doing his thing. It's none of my business. I probably didn't want to go over there either. So, I didn't mean to be making fun of him. He just plain didn't receive the message that that's how Rinpoche treated His Holiness until he was at some point in his 20s. That many years. Okay.
And I happen to have a book already open in one tab that had that list of Venerable Tarpa. I checked it, so she was right.
Really? Ah.
We looked it up.
What's the number?
53 and 55.
153 and 155? More? Huh?
Wait,
I thought it was the other way around, that cyclic existence had more. No?
No.
So the pure side has two more.
Yes.
So happens. Ah. All right. I bow. And smile. I smile all the time anyway. Doesn't mean a thing. But I'm not Rinpoche. Far from it. Couldn't fit on his. Guan Lusha used to tell some kind of story where Rinpoche dropped some kind of jewel or something from his forehead. The former Rinpoche, obviously. Okay. Good day.